Hi, I'm Kelly McCullough, and this is my presentation number 2, Gnome versus KDE. In 1997, the GNU Software Foundation created the Gnome desktop environment. As a GNU project, Gnome was designed to be free from top to bottom. Other design goals included simplicity, accessibility, internationalization, and localization. Gnome tends to focus more on usability and stability. Gnome has now become the default desktop of many popular Linux distributions such as Ubuntu, Fedora, and Debian. Gnome configuration settings are managed via a variety of small but easy-to-use individual applications. Gnome releases. 1.0 was known for anti-aliasing, enabling crisper text in documents, applications, and applets. It used Orbit, Corba, and Bonobo, a component interface that was the equivalent of KDE's Kparts, and introduced an easy-to-use printing framework called Gnome Print based on the PostScript driver. Release 1.4 had a new file manager called Nautilus, plus interoperability with KDE apps. The application launcher could automatically detect a KDE app and insert a menu item for it. Release 2.0 introduced human interface guidelines for writing GNOME GUI application. Subsequent two releases added many mainstream apps to the GNOME umbrella such as Evolution, Galleon, Mozilla, and Numeric. And 2.2 introduced as the 10th anniversary release with improvements in most of the GNOME applications such as Evolution, Epiphany, Events, and GNOME Power Manager. The KDE project was started by Matthias Ettrich in 1996. The motivation for the project was the lack of a good, consistent-looking free desktop environment. It was targeted towards end users who could use the KDE desktop to carry out day-to-day tasks without using command line interface. The initial KDE announcement contained the following project list: Panel, File Manager, Mail Client, Terminal, HTTP Help System, Window Manager, System Tools, Games, and Documentation. It provides a defined set of APIs and libraries that enable developers to deliver a consistent user experience across many different applications. KDE release number 1 had a wide range of features that made it a complete desktop environment. Release 2 brought the internet to a Linux user's desktop. Release 2 also introduced Conqueror, KHTML, KJS, Kparts, and KIO. Release 3 added many features such as new desktop and icon themes, integration with third-party applications, and support for LDAP and Exchange in Kmail and Korganizer. New components and applications included Super Caramba, Aggregator, K-Theme Manager, and K-Wallet. It also boosted support for multiple platforms, including Mac OS X. Release 4 was based on the much improved Qt4, thus inheriting the latter's multi-platform support. It also reinvented a few of the core desktop concepts by including a new application menu, new desktop, and a built-in compositing effect window manager. In comparison, KDE runs natively on every supported platform, including Windows and Mac OS X. It offers as many desktops as you choose, each specialized for a particular task or project. Each activity can have one of a dozen layouts, the most common being a classical desktop to a file manager-like view of a folder. GNOME is also a multi-platform system, but there's no good way to build GNOME apps on Mac OS X and Windows. GNOME as a full package is not available on either of these popular platforms. It gives users two choices: a working and an overview screen, or with extensions, a single screen. Either way, the widgets in the panel are limited and no icons are permitted on the desktop without GNOME Tweak tool. KDE's system settings include numerous features not found in GNOME. While GNOME limits possible behaviors, KDE includes settings for mouse gestures, locales, installing fonts, SSL preferences, default behaviors when external devices are plugged in, and at least a dozen more. Anytime you venture beyond basic settings, GNOME is almost guaranteed to be less accommodating to user preferences or control than KDE. And here is a couple of side-by-side screen comparisons of the two. So in conclusion, KDE has been part of the desktop revolution since its inception. There's no debate on its capacity to innovate and deliver. Each release brings an entirely new set of features for both users and developers. In doing so, however, it has also turned off many of its veteran users. For them, there is Gnome, a more stable desktop environment which comes without the bells and whistles and is good at one thing, being a simplistic desktop environment. If you're still undecided on which desktop environment to use, you can install both. Doing so requires less than 5 gigs of disk space, and you can use all your applications from either of the desktops. And here are my references. Thank you.